Good day everyone, this is Uglo Fashion and you're welcome to my channel. And today we're learning how to make this straight bustier gown with flounce and turtleneck. So if you like this video, if you enjoyed the tutorial so well, please give my video a thumbs up and share, and please subscribe. Thank you. So the measurement I will use for this is shoulder to nipple point 11.5, shoulder to under bust 16 inches, shoulder to half length 18 inches. The circumference of the bust is 43.5. For the under bust is 38. For the half length is 40.5. Then the nipple to nipple is 8. The down length is the long gown, so it's 61.5. I'll be using 62 for that. The shoulder is 16, sleeve is 16. I make the bicep is 16. Then the elbow measurement is 40. The round sleeve measurement is 10. And the hip is 46.5. So to start with, I'll first come to the down part. For the hip measurement, I told you that you measure it from the shoulder length to where the hip is. You can see where the hip of my mannequin is. So for this mannequin now, the hip is 25 and the circumference of this hip is 44. Then the new length, where there is this curve shape, you can see the slant shape here. So this is where it's really showing, this particular side. So now you can see, so this for this my mannequin now is 34. Hip length 25, then the knee length 34. I've folded my fabric into two, like so, but I'm going to cut both back and front together. So I'm going to fold it like this. So I'll leave this side for the zipper allowance. So I'm using 1.5 inch for my zipper allowance here. I'm using 1.5 inch here. So the next thing I will do now is to come up here. I'm not going to use this side. Let me really talk. Then I'll come up here. I'll measure where I'm going to determine my nipple point. It's a gown, so the half length is 18 inches. So I'll use half for joining it the upper part. So I'm going to use 17.5 inches here. Then we are going to determine the hip from our shoulder to our hip length is 25 inches. So I measure this out. I measure it from our shoulder to hip length. So now the new length, where we have this bent shape at our new, is 34 inches. Then the length of the gown is 61.5. So I said I'm going to use 62 inches. But because this is doll face, I'm still going to put lace on it. So I will use that 62 inches. This is 60. And I'll add the 2 inches. So now I'm not putting any folding allowance. I'll still fold it down small. So I'm not adding any folding allowance to it down, because there's still going to be lace there. So the lace is going to serve as the edge down. So I will rule everything out. So after doing this, I'll measure the half length measurement. That's 40.5 inches divided by 4. That will give me 10.5. Then I'll add 2 inches seam allowance to it. I'll come to the hip point. I'll measure the hip circumference, which is 46.5. 46.5 divided by 4 will give me 46 is 11.5 plus, let's say 11.6. Then I'll add 2 inches seam allowance to it. Then at the knee length, I'll say hip minus 4 divided by 4. You know, I've divided all the parts by 4. So I'll just say this hip 46.5 minus 4, which will give me 42.5. That 42.5 divided by 4, that will give me 10.6. Then plus 2 inches seam allowance. So the measurement I have here is the same I'm going to use here. So this heel length, it varies. It depends on what you really want. How tiny, how slim you want that heel length to be. So I'll connect the lines. Then, since I'm cutting both back and front together, let me explain the back as well. So for this back side, what I'm going to do here now is I'll rule out the zipper allowance. So I'll rule out the zipper allowance. I will just rule out the zipper allowance for the back. So the next thing I will do is I will shift the back length. So then measure, this is the knee length, this is the hip length. From the knee length, I'll come in with 1 inch. Then slant it and connect it to the hip length. The purpose of doing this is for the buttocks to shoot out very well. So I'll cut it out now and show you. Front bodies, I've notched the middle. Then for the back bodies, this was what I was trying to explain the other time. I came in with 1 inch, then 1 inch, then slant it to the nipple point. Hip point. So if I'm going to sew this now, I'm going to ensure that they lap on each other. Like so. I'll sew it together, then lap on this clothes. When I'm doing that, I will show you anyway. So the next thing now is to cut the upper bust. So I've folded my fabric into 2 like this. Then I want it to be in circle form. So you can see the way I did it. I first fold it this way. Then I'm coming down this way. So I have 2 joint parts. So after that, I'll come here and measure the length I want for the clothes. The length I'm going to use is 6 inches. Then after sewing, you know, I added seam allowance of 1 inch. After sewing, I will end up at 5 inches. So the 6 inches, I'll come up here and measure from this point to the 6 inches. So the inches I have there is 7 inches. So I'll go around with this 7 inches. Then on this point as well, I'll come down and measure the total I have from that point to the length of the flounce. So I have 13 inches. So I'll go around with that 13 inches. I'll trim everything out. So after this, after cutting it out, I open the middle. So the next thing I'll do is I'll come in here by 4 inches. Then just slant it to this edge. It's not really slant, just small cuff shape. So I cut two of these. One is going to serve as the facing for the other. So I would add my paper stay. Then I'm going to attach the lace to one of these. After cut for the bustier, I'm going to measure the nipple point, which is 11.5. The under bust, that's 15. Then the half length is 18. Half length 18. Then plus seam allowance of half inch. So I will rule everything out. The next thing I will do is to, now I've ruled everything out, next thing is to measure my shoulder circumference. And the shoulder circumference is 16 inches. Divided by 2 will give me 8. So I chalk out 8. And I will come down by 7 inches. That's for the armhole. I'll connect it like so. Then from that point, I'll measure 4.5 inches. 4.5. Then I'll come back to this point and measure the circumference of my nipple point, which is 43.5. 43.5 divided by 4 will give me like 10.75. Then I will add 2 inches seam allowance to it. I will do likewise for this side. For the under bust circumference is 38. Then the half 38 divided by 4 will give me 9.5. I'll add 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'll measure the half length to, that one is 40.5. 40.5 divided by 4 will give me 10.25 or so. Then I'll add 2 inch seam allowance to it. Then I'll connect my lines. So the circumference I have here, the total I have here is 13 inches. So I'll transfer it to this point. Then add 1 inch for the armhole. So after doing that, I'll come back here and measure my nipple to nipple. It's 8 divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. I have a video on this already, so if you don't really understand this part that I'm doing, you can check out the video on how to cut bustier breast princess dart pattern. So I've done that. I connected the 4.5 inches, then I measured half inch here. So from this half inch, I'm going to connect it to this armhole. It's going to be in curve shape, not really straight like that. So from that, I'll measure another 2 inches on this side. I'll connect it. It's going to end at this under bust. Then from after the under bust, I'll come up and make a curve shape like so. Then from this region as well, I'll measure 3 inches. That's what this particular curve shape is going to connect to. Then I'll make my armhole slant here. So because I've used 2 inches out of this, I will have to add extra 2 inches to my measurement. I've measured before, so I'll just add extra 2 inches. Then I'll cut it out. After cutting it out, I notch the under bust of both sides. So when I'm sewing, these two must connect, they must align with each other. So now the next thing is the back side. So to cut the back side, I folded my fabric into two. So I'll measure the length. The length is 18 inches. Then from that, I will add ½ inch for seam allowance. Then the nipple point is 11.5, while the under bust is 15 inches. I'll connect the lines. I'll roll it out first. Then I'll measure my zipper allowance of 2 inches, because the zip is going to definitely be at the back. So I'll measure 2 inches for the zipper allowance. I'll roll it out as well. And after this, I'll measure the shoulder circumference, which is 16 divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. I'll chalk out the 16 inches. Then come down to this side as well. I'll measure the circumference of the bust. That's 43.5. That would be like 10.85 or so. Then I will add 2 inches seam allowance to it. I'll do the same for here. Under bust is 38 divided by 4 will give me 9.5. Then I'll add 2 inches seam allowance. Here I'll measure the circumference here is 40.5. That will give me like 10.6 or so. So I'll add 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'll connect the lines. So I'll come back to the shoulder. To make the shoulder, to make the armhole, I'll chalk 7 inches. So I'll measure the total I have here, which is 13. Then I'll transfer the 13 here as well. Then I will add 1 inch extra for the shoulder slope. So I'll come back here and measure 4.5. Then come to this angle as well and measure 1 inch. So from that 4.5, I'll connect just to give it this curved armhole shape. Then I'll cut it out. Next thing I'll do now is to open up this joint part. There is still going to be steep inside. Then I'll measure, because the neck is turtleneck, I'll measure 2.5 inches here. Then I'll come down by 1 inch for the back. Then for the shoulder, I'll measure 1 inch here, then slant it to the neckline. The next thing now is to measure my nipple to nipple. The nipple to nipple is 4 inches. So I will add half to it. That'll give me 4.5. So I will measure 4.5 to the nipple point. Then on this side, I'll measure half. And on this other side too, I'll measure half. Then connect, make a triangular shape like this to the nipple point. So it's going to be like 1 inch above the nipple point of 3 inches out. So that's how it's going to be. So the next thing to do now is to cut the neckline for the front bodies as well. bodice, I'm going to cut the neckline. I will do 2.5 as well. The width is 2.5, then the length will be 2.5. Then I'll just puff it out and cut. So after this, I'll come here as well and measure 1 inch, just the way I did for the back. Then slant it to the neckline. So that's for both front and back. I'll just notch the middle of this. Now part, I've joined my doll face to the actual net that I want to use. This is a cord lace pink. So I have folded it. So I've sewn it like this for both front and back. That's the front side. So this is the back. You know, I cut out some parts here. I cut out 1 inch to give this part shape. So this is the hip side. So if I finish joining this, I will show you. You know, I said we're going to mark on each other. And for the upper bodice, which is the back, this is the back. I've done my darts and I added paper stitch for it. So I've done that for both sides. Then for the lining as well, this is the lining. I've attached the paper stitch to that as well, and I've done my dart inside that as well. So for the bustier, you know, I said I have a video on this. So this is for the lining. And for the main body, I've added my wording and also my paper stitch, and I've joined it. You can see. So the next thing I will do now, okay, let me show you the flows as well. So for the flows, I added my paper stitch, then I added pillow line to it so that it will give it stiffness. So this is the facing I told you I'm going to use for it. So I added my net to this too. You can see I added the net on the doll face. Then I'm using another doll face. You know, I cut through to do the facing for it. So it is on this I added my pillow line. So the next thing I will do now is to join the shoulder of both front bodies and the back, the front body and the back bodies. I'll join the shoulder together like so. I'll join the shoulder. Then the next thing is I will now measure the circumference I have here and use it to cut my turtleneck. You know, the style has turtleneck. So let me just do that. Now I've joined the shoulders together. See? I've joined the front and back together. So now I'll measure the circumference I have here, which is 19 inches. That's plus the zipper allowance, so 19 inches. So I cut 3 inches by 20 inches. That is, I added 1 inch for my seam allowance. Now I'm still going to turn this. So I added, you can see, 3 by 20 inches. So what I will do now is I will notch the middle of this. Then notch the middle of my bodice too. Then I'll just fold it into two like this. Since I'm still going to use lining to turn my bodice. So I'll notch both middles together. So I'll sew this on the bodice. I'll show you what I'm doing. Now I'm joining, fixing the neck. So the next thing I'll do is to take my lining and stitch everything together. Now, after joining this back together, like so, you know, I told you there is going to be zip at the back. So after the space I left for the zipper allowance, now I stitch the two together. Then the remaining, I place them on each other. I stitch them together. Then I now place them on on the fabric. You can see now I place them back on the fabric, then I stitch them like this. Then after joining everything together, I now used my hemming gum to, it can't open because there is hemming gum at the down part, to gum the back together. I mean the slit side. Fixing the, after joining the down bodies with the upper bodies, I stitch down my flounce. I just stitch it down on the upper bodies like so. Then on this side, I came down and I just stitch it down like so. So the next thing I did, I joined the bodies together. I fixed my shoulder. Then I placed it back on my mannequin. I ensure the steps, as in the flounce, are well stitched down. So this, like I did it this way, I intentionally did not stitch this so that you can see. I held it firm, then I stitch it with my bodies, the flounce and the bodies together. Then I can now place my iron just to press the side down. So this is all for the gown.